Welcome to the Draft Brewery. Dr. Chris Baker, DC, here as always. I got a new little article idea that I wanted to throw down here called Pillars of the Format, basically looking at the new metagame after the rotation of Theros Block and M15 leaving. We've got a whole new metagame. 3 weeks of tournaments have been completed so far, and the Standard Pauper Double League just started, so we've got a lot of action and a lot of new information to synthesize, and I came up with a way to go over it that I think is pretty unique and cool. But first, there's actually a little bonus topic we want to talk about today. It has to do with this little announcement here. So, Robert Schuster works at Wizards of the Coast. He does a Q&A about the format removal. Interesting that they call it format removal on Magic Online. Take note that I retweeted this so that people had the information, but I did not favorite. This is not one of my favorites, but I thought it was good information for everybody to know. So let's kind of go over this, what they're talking about. Received a fair amount of questions regarding the reasoning behind removing some of the formats currently on Magic Online. Below are more detailed answers. Okay. Why are you removing Standard Pauper, which we care about, and other constructed formats? First, there are more formats available. When there are more formats available, you fragment the player population. Yeah, false. How does offering different formats fragment the population? See, there's this baseline assumption that if, like, someone like me on Magic Online, I'll do limited and I'll do Standard Pauper. If they take away, which they're doing is just taking away a filter, that does not mean I'm going to just like buy a modern deck because that's what I want to go play now. It's like I'm very well versed in what Magic is, and I know Standard and Constructed and formats that are solved by Grand Prix and Pro Tours and, you know, cost tons of time and money to get good at. Just, they're not for me. Like, okay, so anyway, this means players will wait longer to find matches. I just played a tournament of Standard Pauper today. Didn't have to wait at all. It was all organized and set up. I just played maybe like 3 or 4 practice matches in a row. Didn't wait a single minute at all. It's in the Just for Fun room under Standard Pauper. The filter had on average 1 to 2 games going at a time, but that's just enough to always have a game. So, okay. I don't know why that would be bad anyway. If I didn't find a game, then I would just go do something else. Like I can go do anything else. It's not a big deal. Players may see a format and assume they can find a match in a reasonable time frame. Anytime you say sentences like this, you're just making assumptions. They assume they can find a match. Yeah, like if you don't, then like it's a self-fulfilling little prophecy here. Like, you don't find a match, okay, I'll try something else. But if you do, then it's fine. That simply hasn't been true for these formats, as they do not have anywhere near critical mass required to allow any time play. I don't know about you. There's times when I try to play when I know people are online. Like for me in Pacific Standard Time, how about at night when I'm done from work and other people are around the world are either just waking up or it's late at night for them and they play that at night. I don't know. Like, I notice people don't play very much when it gets to be like 3 a.m. my time. Well, probably everybody's sleeping. So I don't play at those times. You know? It's like, okay, I just don't like any of their arguments. Second, Magic R&D doesn't playtest many of these formats when making cards. Our top priorities are to make the flagship constructed in limited formats as awesome as they can be. Because the number of people who play Standard on a daily basis is orders of magnitudes higher than something like Legacy Tribal Wars, Standard Pauper, sure, it makes sense to use our limited playtesting and development time on the more popular format. Now that, I totally agree with. The problem, and this is a compliment to Wizards of the Coast, is you don't have to spend any time thinking about these formats. They're not sanctioned. They're not like tournament staple formats. In fact, in the last 2 years, Wizards of the friggin' Coast designed a fantastic standard Pauper limited format. It was incredibly diverse. There are aggro decks, there are control decks, there are like mono green and green red stupid stompy decks would win, and then like these Is It and Dimir control decks would win with Grey Merchants and Flurry of Horns and Token Makers and Treasure Cruises. And then you had these mono white and Boros and all these heroic flavors of protecting creatures to make them huge. There's so many different decks, and it was insane. And they didn't prepare for that at all. They didn't spend any time in their R&D spending any time on it. So who cares? I don't want them to spend time on it. Spend time on the important stuff. Here's the thing. Commons, by themselves, basically autocorrect. Meaning the power level between the worst common and the best common is pretty high. But the power level between the best common and like the worst playable common isn't that much relatively compared to like the best mythic rare in the set versus like the most playable common in the set when we're talking like popular standard decks. So standard Pauper is like, yeah, the most powerful card is like Treasure Cruise probably right now. Sometimes it's uncastable. Sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes it's countered and nothing happens. Other times you cast it and you chain into more of them and you get insurmountable card advantage, and the game's again not over because the cards you're drawing aren't that busted either relative to the other cards in the format. So yeah, that whole argument makes zero sense to me. Like, I'm not asking them to spend time putting into these sanctioned formats. That's a cop-out. Like, don't spend any more time. You don't need to. You're doing a great job already. Gosh, that's... However, this doesn't say we don't want to continue to find fun and interesting ways to play the cards in Magic Online. The freeform format will allow you to include any cards that you like in your deck, and I'd like to invite you to continue playing your favorite formats, even though they're not officially supported. What's interesting is that they've never been officially supported. They just had a filter made for them. Like, I just can't believe a company that makes as much money as it does can't spend whatever, like, give me the time, the money, and the resources, tell me what it costs to like do these random formats. And it's just that has to be a blip in the radar compared to what their profit margins are. So like, I just don't get it. Anyway, can you help me understand why this change frees up digital developmental resources? On the design side, knowing the formats that we are designing card implementations for allows for more focused designs. You spend more time on popular formats. We heard that already. Committing to an Aeroscope lets provide high quality experience. Sure. For our quality assurance teams, testing cards in fewer formats allows them more time to focus and our most played constructed limited formats. They haven't said anything new here. Future League. Nothing, no new information. Programmers that work on the cards will only be to create exceptions and special cases for the now removed formats. Yep. That can't seriously take that much time and energy. That really can't. Why not 2-headed giant, 3-headed giant? We don't care about those. That's whatever. Alright, so that's all they have. Yeah. Overall, basically what seems to be the issue here, and I think their main argument is that the amount of people playing these formats wasn't enough to merit their time. Either they're not making money on them, or they're spending time and money on them and not getting a return, so they just don't care. So what that tells me is they either need to make more money off of these formats, or we need to have a large enough of a player base to have some clout. Meaning, Pauper didn't get destroyed. Pauper has cards that are actually worth a decent amount of money because there's demand, because everybody plays it. It's just interesting to me that constructed goes from standard to modern to legacy to vintage, and that's basically the hierarchy for constructed competitive play right now. And then Pauper is basically like Legacy, but there's no modern Pauper or standard Pauper in the same amount of support when there could be very robust metagames for it. But there's no premier level events with it, which is just why it doesn't get the support it does. I found standard Pauper to be a great format just to help with limited game, sideboarding, deck choices, sequencing. Just it's made me much better at limited, which is actually what I care about. I play standard Pauper because it feels like you're playing limited. So yeah, the only way that I think that they'll change their mind about removing the filter is if it becomes as popular as something like regular Pauper. Once it has that kind of support, then they can't ignore it. So it's just data driven. So I respect everybody, all the cool standard Pauper people who've been retweeting and emailing and asking everybody to voice your opinion and sound off. In the end of times here, we're talking like our community is like probably less than 100 people. I don't know. Like, even if every single person wrote a personalized letter, like, they don't care. Our anecdotal experience does not matter because their arguments mainly, we don't have the numbers compared to the millions, maybe not millions. I don't know how many people use Magic Online. But we just need to be able to create as much popularity as Pauper for it to matter. Until it gets to that level, I think instead of we start, be solution oriented, quit bitching and moaning about them not supporting us. It's like, we can still play the format. We can use freeform. Heck, I would use, as long as there's no ban cards, I would use standard as the filter, and then all you have to do is check for rarity when you go into a tournament. And everybody should know, you're going to get disqualified if you enter with an uncommon. And what's cool is, with the new standard Pauper rules, the card gets reprinted at uncommon. Let's say that used to be a common, like Doomblade. If that card gets reprinted at uncommon, it'll show up as silver. It'll be uncommon. You might go, is it legal? It's like, no, just the card itself has to be common right now. So it's like pretty easy to know. The only thing that gets confusing is, let's say you own Doomblade and MTGO online already, and you go, search for standard filter, and then Doomblade pops up because it is in standard, but the ones you own are commons from some core set or something. That can be confusing, but that's something where it's like, yeah, all we need to do is have a list of cards that fit that criterion, just make sure everybody knows about them. And there's not that many cards like that. Alright, so let's quit freaking out, and let's just say, hey, I know they're trying to kill our format removal 101 Q&A. They're not going to. We're going to keep playing. We have tons of prizes and support from a bunch of bots, card hoarders, sweet, MTGO traders is awesome. Gwyned hosts and donates a bunch. Joe Cool, donates a bunch. Like, these guys will support because we like this format. I like it because it's unsolved. There's not a bunch of pros playing it. There's not a bunch of Grand Prix and Pro Tour data out there. So we are actually creating the data. And our little mini play-around event tournaments is us experimenting and figuring out the format. It's super fun. So beyond that, I have one piece of advice for everybody, and we got to start practicing it now, and that is #standard Pauper right here. So when you go into the join chat channel, we gotta make this the channel that everybody meets at, and you can play games in the just for fun room, and we'll either do, I don't know, standard or freeform or whatever, but you can label standard Pauper in the comments to find a random game, but you could also just challenge people in the room and just talk to people in the chat room as well. And that might actually be a good thing for the community to have more people in a single chat room. I always thought that was stupid. Like, when you are going, like, let's say I'm going to the Just for Fun room where I know people will be, and I'm searching for a standard Pauper game, why is there not, like, a group chat box of everybody else searching for standard Pauper games in that Just for Fun room that you can chat with? That would be quite easy. So that's actually what we need to do here, is make our own little chat room for it. Okay, so hashtag standard Pauper is one of the solutions. From there, we just need more people playing. Yeah, it's just definitely a sweet format, and we'll try to highlight that. So let's talk about the format here. So, pillars of the format. I separate these things into categories. All right, now I use this program called AutoCard Enabler. It's an extension through Google Chrome here. Basically, if you type out the name of a Magic card name and it's spelled correctly, and you hover over it, it will show you the art, which is sweet. So yeah, so right now, the number one category, I've kind of, some of these couple things are ranked in order, but other things are just a little bit more random. The number one thing about standard Pauper format right now is Delve. Delve is basically enabling the most broken things that you can do, because you can do multiple things in one turn and end up playing things like 1 mana 5/5, or 1 mana draw 3, or 1 mana 3/3 flying, or 1 mana 4/4 trample. So my little system here is basically, if I have a plus sign next to it, I'm recommending it for play, meaning in the decks that you're trying to build, you should be actively trying to see if you can get this card into a shell. And I'll give you some examples at the very end of, like, the top 3 decks from today's tournament are a perfect representation, I think, of the pillars of the format from a deck perspective. But I'm breaking it down a little bit more specific. So, Delve spells, well, we need Delve enablers. The best Delve enabler in the set by far is Evolving Wilds. There are no monocolor decks in the format. None that I know of that you want to actively be. Mono red is close. But you have such little card advantage that any deck just playing a lot of removal can get you pretty easily. So this card's perfect, filling the graveyard, fixing your land. It's the best ever. Second best Delve enabler, this card, Tormenting Voice, skyrocketed in value the longer and longer it's been in the format. Currently we don't have Divination anymore, so this is just 2 mana Divination, which is helping fuel the Delve cards even faster. And you really just got to remember to not play out all your lands when you have this card in your deck. You don't want to draw this card when you're hellbent, because you will feel very, very, very silly. Yeah, this is one of my favorite cards right now. Other Delve enablers, Rakshaka's Secret, the Mind Drop variant. I don't recommend playing this just to enable Delve. What else we got? Gurmag Drowner. To enable Delve, this guy's okay. It's like Forbidden Alchemy. On a 2/4 body is not super relevant though. So to enable Delve, I don't really recommend him. Scout the Borders. Again, you only get to look for a creature or a land. Nobody wants a land, so you're getting a creature. 5 cards, like, it's just too much of a do nothing, so don't recommend it. Time Scheming. Again, I think this card's kind of like a ball ritual. You're paying 2. You're typically getting a dark ritual for 5, because you're going to put 4 cards in your graveyard itself is the 5th card, and then the top card of your library will be something like Treasure Cruise or Gurmag Angler in the best case scenario. So this card is acting like whatever, Cabal Ritual or Seething Song for 2 mana, but it has to spend 1, and it sometimes doesn't get there, and sometimes only Dark Rituals or something. Overall, it costs way too much time and effort to do, and I'd rather just draw cards. I prefer real card advantage. So yeah. Alright, next pillar of the format is tokens. Tokens are everywhere. You gotta know how to deal with them. First and foremost, Dragon Fodder is probably the best token enabler because it's a spell that also makes creatures, so it fuels your delve. And it does it all. Sticking with red in the best token making color. The Gear Crafter is super solid, especially like it because the 1/1 that flying that it makes, or the 1/1 that it makes is flying, which can block the Eldrazi Sky Spawner, which is a 2/1 flying. So it actually matches up really good against the Sky Spawner because they trade in the air, and now you have a 2/1 on the ground versus their 1/1. So if you can deal with their 1/1, then you have dealt with their, or can deal with 2 instead of 1. So in the direct matchup, though, Eldrazi Sky Spawner is definitely a little bit better. It goes into most every blue deck. Presence of cards like this in the format are what make the answers to them have to be playable. Otherwise, you just get hyper punished, which influences the metagame. So super interesting. Other ones, you got Incubator Drone. Not enough tokens, and a 2/3 for 4 is not that great. Let's watch it now. If you're going Gruul tokens, I highly recommend this guy because he's lets you refill pretty easily, and yeah, just like it. Call the Scions. It's only 2 guys for 3. Just pretty much worse than Dragon Fodder. You don't really want to use them for mana, so not really recommending that. And then Sandstep Outcast and Mardu Horde Chief. I think if a white token deck or like a white-red token deck existed, maybe with Impact Tremors, I would play them. They're both good. So yeah, that deck just lost like Raise the Alarm and Triplicate Spirits, but you could definitely play these cards. I haven't built that deck yet, mainly because it doesn't have enough card advantage, but so yeah, now we're on to the overruns. So you made a bunch of tokens. Now how do you kill your opponent before they find a way to deal with them all? I recommend Kythian's Tactics, mainly because the token producers, a lot of them, in conjunction, like Dragon Fodder, Tormenting Voice, Treasure Cruise, all these cards could potentially go in the same deck. Makes you have Spell Mastery, you have other remover spells too. And then from there, Trumpet Blast, very similar cards. I don't really like these 4 mana ones just because you can just max out on the 3 mana ones for the games that you don't have extra mana, which can happen. You want to be able to do 2 things in one turn, like play 2 pump spells or something, or pump spell and a removal spell, or pump spell and a counter spell. Storm Surge again, yeah, I don't really like Devoid aggro token decks either, so not recommending those. Alright, so how do we deal with all these tokens? There's 2 cards in the format that actually sweep tokens. One is Boiling Earth. I highly recommend this card. I actually don't think you need to play it main deck because a lot of decks are just playing not tokens for fear of this card. So if they don't have any X1s in their deck, then this card is real bad. But you can run Twin Bolt, honorable mention, and that'll help deal with cards like Dragon Fodder, Eldrazi Sky Spawner, etc., all the flying tokens. And then if they just played like a 2/2 for 2, I don't know, like Topin Freeblade, you can still deal with it, hopefully, before it hits you and you get, whatever that thing is called, Renowned. So yeah, that's it for sweepers. So not very many options. Black Lost, Fester Gloom, and Shrivel. Scouring Sands. I guess there's Barrage of Boulders. My list was not complete. Barrage of Boulders goes in the sweeper category. Might also be good. It's because the creatures can't block if you have creature power 4 more. I see it in the sideboard of some decks if they're really trying to block your guys, but Anyway, hashtag standard Pauper. See you there, chat room style. Alright, card draw. Now this is my bread and butter. Alright, we got Treasure Cruise, best card in the format. Read the Bones. This card's quite strong. There's a card draw spell I forgot on my list here too. That is Altar's Reap. Black, white, sack a creature, draw 2 cards. Really great with creatures that have a die trigger. So Palace Swinger and Jeskai Sage, recommend both of them because they draw cards. Sultai Emissary does not draw a card, even though he makes a 2/2, which makes him better with Nantuko Husk. So keep that in mind, but I'm not really a fan. I like drawing cards. So Vulture Savin. Yeah, that's my jam. Sign in Blood on a Stick. I actually prefer Vulture Savin to Read the Bones in most decks. I'll play like usually just one Read the Bones because a life loss adds up and there's no easy life gain in this format except for like Butcher's Glee or whatever. Should make a whole new category for how do we gain life. Yeah, Tormenting Voice, as we said already, is great. Not just at enabling Del, but getting you... Again, card draw are cards I would consider that either cycle, I guess, or create card advantage. This creates card parity, but you're usually discarding a land, or you're stuck on 2 lands and have all higher converted mana cost cards in your opening hand, and you're discarding your highest, most uncastable cards to enable the rest of your hand. So it's just quite strong. Artificer's Epiphany does about the same thing as Tormenting Voice. There's not that many artifacts in the format, just the Thopter tokens from the Gear Crafter and the Artificer, Aspiring Aeronaut, and Guardians of Meletis. I like that you can hold this open for instant speed. Haven't quite found enough room in my decks to play it though. Same thing with Weave Fate. Like, if I want to pay 4 mana, I want I want to scry 2, then draw 2 cards for instant speed. I basically want to Read the Bones. Maybe scry. Maybe like scry 1, draw a card, scry 1, draw a card, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, that's the card draw of the full match. And keep in mind, there might be like a card or 2 that I'm forgetting, but I'm really just trying to highlight the good cards. And ones that I'm recommending and ones that I'm like not quite recommending. So anticipate, I literally don't know why this card won't show up. But I do recommend it. I play usually like 2 in a deck. You can't sit there and play Anticipates and do nothing. Infinite. But it is good card selection and helps you find some things. All these other cards, Drowner, we said, for card selection, Seek the Wilds, Scout the Borders. All too much to do nothing for me. Landfall. Now this is another whole archetype. This is an aggro deck. Standard has this deck, and they play, a bunch of creatures, bunch of fetch lands. We have Evolving Wilds. So Snapping Gnarled, McKindy Slider, Under Valakut Predator are the main guys. Territorial Baloth has landfall, but it's a little too expensive. I like it in the sideboard though. Maybe, the opponent brings in a bunch of Fiery Impulses and Touch of the Void and stuff, and then can't kill this guy very easily. Combine him with Hooting Mandrills. Maybe you've got some ideas here. So the growth again, just not that good of a pump spot. I'd rather just be guaranteed to get the other +2/+2 if you're going to pay 2 mana and play Titanic Growth. But, so yeah, the creatures are quite strong. Alright, other pillars of the format. We got to look at the removal here. Alright, Fiery Impulse is basically Shock or Lightning Bolt for creatures, one of the best. It only costs 1 mana. There aren't other cards like this. Card's one of the best in the format. Twin Bolt, we've already talked about. Acts as a sweeper, deals with all those tokens. Instant speed, it's great. Touch of the Void. Now, if you're in the business of wanting to process or deny things like the draw triggers on this, or deny cards in graveyards so that your opponent doesn't delve as easily, then the exile effect is quite strong. So I do recommend this card, but sometimes it just misses things, and you'll wish it was other stuff. Bathe in Dragonfire. I don't think 4 toughness is the key toughness in the format. I think 5 is because of Gurmag Angler. So I don't recommend that. But I do recommend Sarkhan's Rage. Can kill a Gurmag Angler, and it can go to the face, which is just an alternate win-con mode, which is great. You're always going to take 2 damage because there are seldom any common dragons lurking. There's a 5/5 haste, but you have to shuffle that into your library and it won't stick around, so you need 10 mana for this to not deal 2 damage to you. So yeah, I don't see that happening. Boiling Earth, we already talked about, is great. Other things, Arrow Storm, it's just 4 damage or 5 if you've already attacked. It's not an instant though, so I don't think it's better than Sarkhan's Rage, even though it doesn't deal you 2 damage. Bring Low only deals 3. Fiery Impulse does the same thing pretty much, and there's no +1/+1 counters. Now, Bone Splinters, I do recommend. You got to be able to kill the Gurmag Anglers and other big threats. Maybe some Eldrazi's are lurking out there, or just killing flyers with like 3 toughness can be tough sometimes. So I definitely like that. Now, Reeve Soul is good, but if you're in the market for playing Reeve Soul, then I'm in the market for playing Complete Disregard. Again, stopping those dice triggers, being an instant. I guess also you can't give a creature protection from black with like Center Soul. So all those situations I think coming up are more relevant than the time where it's like you need, let's say you don't have 3 mana available and you need to Reeve Soul right away. It just gives the opponent more time to like cast Titan Strength or whatever in response to a sorcery. Whereas if it's an instant, you can like lead off with something, force them to respond, and then get them with Complete Disregard. So yeah. So that's a no to Reeve Soul, yes to Complete Disregard. Yes to Debilitating Injury. Mainly for 2 types of cards. One is the cards that kill creatures that Complete Disregard sometimes misses, which is 4 2s. And you'll see a lot of those Sabertooth Outrider or Alpine Grizzly in the green-red deck. Complete Disregard is just so bad against them. So you do need this against them, otherwise you get Stone Blanks. But what it's really there for is Nantuko Husk. Every other red removal spell, you know, they just sack a guy and then it's still alive. And it's really annoying because you can't exile creatures when it's in play. And so if they run graveyard recursion things, then it's a problem. So I like being able to at least take it off the board. So yeah, it's usually a sideboard card, but I like it. Now, Flesh to Dust. Destroy target creature can be regenerated, 5 mana, and Unholy Hunger are very, very similar. So this one could gain you 2 life, the other one will never gain you 2 life. The other one won't let them be regenerated. The only card that really gets people to regenerate right now that people use is Butcher's Glee. So I'd rather have the chance to gain 2 life. I think the life gain potential is a lot better. So I actually play 1 Unholy Hunger in my Dimir control deck. Okay. Flatten, not sure why it's not showing up here, but 4 mana instant, -4/-4. Again, 5 is the toughness of the format because of Gurmag Angler, so don't play that. Slimgar Butcher is pretty good actually because it creates the 3/3 body to go along with sacking your creature for value. So you can kill a guy and then be able to block their guy, which is quite strong. So I like him for especially getting rid of Sultai Emissary or Sultai Scavenger in the air or any flyer, because they're mostly all 3 toughness or less guys. Gideon's Approach, I don't like it when it's only during the attacker blocking phase, so you can play the removal spell. It's easy to play around. Like, let's say they duress you, when they see it there, then they can just like tax your mana the whole game. It's efficient. It works really good if you have creatures with trample and you're attacking and forcing them to block bad into it. But It's efficient at 2 mana. Sandblast, 3 mana, 5 damages. Again, Sandblast isn't even recommended on my list either, even though it does kill Gurmag Angler. Because there are Eldrazi in the format too. So you got to keep that in mind. So Killshot you could play, but I don't think you want to be purely defensive either. Now, Killshot maybe deserves to be playable in a purely defensive deck, but if you're playing purely defensive deck, I don't think you're going to do well, so don't recommend it. Plummet, don't know why it doesn't show up again. Green in 1, destroy flyer. Sideboard material, aerial volley, good sideboard card, but I don't think you need it. You can just play other ways to kill small toughness flyers like, Boiling Earth and Twin Bolt, stuff like that. But if you're not playing red, sure, play that. Claustrophobia, I actually like being able to kill the big things in the format. The problem is Altar's Reap and Bone Splinters and other ways to get value, bouncing your own guys, Clutch of Currents, all that stuff. So it's a little rough. It's good in like the tempo aggro deck, but it's temporary a lot of the time. So Turning Coils, same thing. You still let them chump block it, or you let them get value with their Altar's Reap. So not a huge fan. Hashtag Sander Pauper. Don't forget it. All right. Next up is counter spells. Dispel is back, and I do like it. And people have played it, and I've tried it. I've just had it in my hand too many times and drawn it too many times in sideboarded games where my opponent played Treasure Cruise and I needed negate over it. And there haven't been that many times where I only could hold open 1 mana and it was relevant that it was Dispel, not negate. So I'm going to default to negate almost every single time in this format. Disdainful Stroke is also great right now. I think it's main deckable. There's only a few decks that don't have targets that are good for it, and the card is just super strong. Being able to counter everything from Gurmag Angler to Treasure Cruise to, Bone Dash to, Sarkhan's Rage. Just hits so many different things. To Vulture Saban. Like, it gets everything. So yeah, I highly recommend that. Cancel and Spell Shovel. Now they're kind of at odds here. You would think Cancel's better, but if you're in the market for, again, processing, maybe a Ruin processor, something like that, then I like Spell Shovel more. It's easier to cast too, but they're close. But I actually been playing Spell Shovel and it's been fine. Again, I like it more than Calculated Dismissal. I don't care about the Scry. And people have 3 mana more easily than they have 4. 4 is tough. Even when you're in the mid to late game, sometimes 4 is tough. Bone to Ash. I didn't think I was going to like this card. I definitely was. It was unplayable before this rotation happened, for sure. It cost too much against heroic decks and whatnot, right? But this card is great right now. There's mainly only one reason. Just that was coming up soon. But yeah, I love getting value. A lot of creatures have comes in the play abilities, or a lot of creatures are taking up a lot of delve cards, so it's huge when you can counter draw. Contradict costs too much. It's 5 mana counter draw card. And Oshaka's Disdain sometimes doesn't get there, so too situational. Okay, so discard. Duress is A+ discard because you get to choose, you get to reveal their hands, so you get tons of information, and all the most powerful cards in the format are usually spells. There are some good creatures now, but Duress is basically Thoughtseize, which is great. So I recommend that. Hits non-land, non-creature. Shaka's Secret, again, for pure discard, mind rotting them, 3 mana to make them discard 2, is not where you want to be in this format. What happens is you're enabling their delve. So if I have Treasure Cruise and any other cards in hand, you're making it easier for me to quickly cast Treasure Cruise, and you're probably tapped out now. So you're allowing it to resolve. So basically, you spend a card and make me discard 2, and then I just play my cruise and draw 3. So that's what happens a lot of the time. But it could be good at other times, especially if you're trying to enable your delve, but I'd rather just play duress right now. Deborah Shaman, I do like him, but I think there's a little too much incidental 1/1s and hate for him, and people can just discard random cards too. So I don't quite like him right now. If it was Black Cat, I probably would like it, because discarding cards at random, like him to Turok, is brutal, and there's so many good sack outlets, exploit enablers, that it's tough. Mars Malice, I do like the possibility of a creature on my Mind Rot, but too expensive. A Night there, a Mind Rot that can be a duress. This card is all kind of schizo and confused. It costs too much. Okay, the next category of cards here are the ingesters. So, if you notice there's no plus signs here, it's because ingesting as a strategy, I think, is not good. Right? And I just read my boy T-Woo's article on how to say something's not good, and I think there's this slang that I use a lot, and I know a lot of other people do, where we say something's unplayable. And the counter argument is, well, it's not unplayable. Some people are playing it right now, and they're probably winning, or they're losing, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because they're playing it, and so it's not unplayable. So just realize, Urban Dictionary, MTG, unplayable just means really bad. It's not what you actively want to be doing. It's the opportunity cost of you're choosing to do this when you could be doing something else. And that something else is probably more powerful. Now when the next set comes out, if there's more ingesters and more processors at common, we'll talk. But none of these cards, lose 2 life, 2/2 for 2, a shade, but it costs 2 mana to get +1/+1, 1/2 flying for 2, and 1/4 unblockable for 4. That one's respectable. But the rest of them, you don't want to be ingesting. Now processing, we've got 3 of them now. Ruin Processor, ever since BFZ Limited came out, I've been in love with this card. I've stabilized so many games where it looks like you're dead. You play this, you gain 5 life, they can't attack, and their burn spells no longer, in range, or their whatever. Card's just great. And my first couple of weeks, I didn't think this card was gonna make it, because none of my decks were getting there. But then I realized this is actually a great sideboard card, and so I've been bringing it in out of the sideboard when I know I'm playing against a slow deck, so I know I'll have time to cast it. Or in a matchup where I know they're going to try to, for example, I played a Gruul landfall deck today. They know I have a ton of early removal and stuff, so they boarded into a deck that had a lot of bigger creatures that were a little slower. And so I just want to go one step bigger than them, right? If I sideboard in more small removal for their early creatures, and they go bigger than that, then I lose. But if I overtop them with this guy, then it's great. So yeah, he is a payoff for processing, which is also part of Spell Shrivel and Touch of the Void, and Complete Disregard. So keep in mind that the reason why these ingesters are also not very good is because the spells that exile, and other people just delve. Again, delve is so prevalent in the format. If someone delves, they'll have cards in exile, which you can then process. So it's not that hard. Alright, 4 mana 3/2, bounce the guy, and 5 mana 3/5 loot are just not worth it. I can see Oracle Dust against an opponent. If I play Treasure Cruise, my whole graveyard is basically exiled, so you could just loot infinitely with a card like this, and it's 5 toughness. The problem is it doesn't stop Gurmag Angler, and you're paying 5 mana for it. If this card was a 3/6, or I'd take a 2/6. If this card was a 2/6, I could maybe see it as a 1 of, because they're bad in multiples. But yeah, don't see it happening. Alright, so now keep in mind, you can't just have removal spells. Or you do need removal spells for the likes of these creatures because you can't just have blockers. So two creatures in particular, Benthic Infiltrator and Elusive Spellfist, are the key creatures with unblockable that are efficiently costed, can play some defense, and then crunch in. Core Home Guide costs too much mana to activate. The Scout is one-time use. It has a combo with Antuco Husk, but other than that, it's not good by itself. And Mystic of the Hidden Way costs a little bit too much. You gotta pay 5 mana or 6 mana after the flip, and it still just dies to any 2 damage spell, which is all over the place. Twin Bolt, Fiery Impulse, right? So these things, higher toughness and are hard to kill, make you realize, yeah, you can't just flood the ground with tokens. You have to play removal spells or interaction against these creatures. So if you find people are playing less removal, then I would start playing decks that run cards like this and maybe try to, get past those tokens. Or any blockers, really. Now, there's only 2 hexproof creatures in the format: Conifer Strider, 4-mana 5/1, and Whirler Adept, 5-mana 4/2. These cards aren't great because there's no real good auras. There's no Bestow anymore. No Eternal Thirst. So the only way I've been seeing these cards to have play for me is I have a Simic Tokens deck. It's like mono tokens game 1. Hoping that the opponent boards in all the token sweeping removal or just deals with that. Has removal, and then you play these 2 creatures. And then the best cards to put on them are Stratus Walk, if they don't block flying, but if they have 1/1 flyers or Eldrazi Scions, then the best card to actually put on each of these creatures is Tamir Runemark. Tamir Runemark says it gets +2/+2 and trample if you control a blue creature, and it costs green and 2. So, for example, the turn that you play Tamir Runemark on Whirlwind Adept, you're going to be attacking with a 7/4 trampler, which is nuts if you have any pump spell. You have Tamir Battle Rage, that's nuts. You have Titan Strength, that's nuts. If you have a bunch of tokens of Might of the Masses, that'll get there. So overall, I don't recommend them. I don't think they're that good. Now, Edicts basically as the hexproof answers. Again, there's only one in the format. There's Celestial Flare. Because these things are not widely seen and played, Celestial Flare and tons of tokens, Celestial Flare is not recommended either. Keep in mind there's no Ranger's Guile. There's just Glint, costs 2 mana to give a creature hexproof to save him from removal. But even then, just not quite there good enough. Bounce effects. These things are pretty interesting. Clutch Occurrence is one of the best cards to enter the format. And it's strong, but you really have to be an aggressive deck to make good use of it. In a defensive deck, I found it to be okay just in a pinch to they put Infectious Bloodlust on their creature and I don't have more than 2 or 3 mana yet. Okay, I'll just bounce their creature and, to tempo them and get their enchantment out or something. Just gives you time. None of the tokens in the format are very big though. There's Ojitize commands. Just more things to add in the tokens category. Now, Ojitize command makes 5 mana, makes a 2/2 flyer, then you cast it again, makes another 2/2 flyer. Those are tokens. I guess I didn't think about it when I put it in the tokens list here though, because it's more of a control card, not a pure tokens card. But it does make multiple creatures, but it's no Rise of Eagles. But that fits under that category there, for sure. So basically what I'm saying is Clutch Occurrence is a removal spell for Ojitize Summons tokens or 1/1 flying tokens, but that's about as big as they get. But it is good to be able to target your own creatures like a ruin processor that got pacifismed or something. Or to target their Gurmag Angler after they spent all of their graveyard casting it, and maybe they don't have 7 mana in play yet, so you can really set them back a lot and grow some huge awakened creatures. My current favorite is Disperse. Over Force Away. Now, if you have a 4-power creature, you can loot, which is great, sure. But I don't think you're going to have 4-power creatures that often, and I like the versatility of being able to potentially bounce things like Impact Tremors or a Pacifism and then block after they attack or something like that. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe just bouncing those things doesn't matter, and being able to potentially loot is just so much stronger. You know, it just depends if you have creatures with power 4 or more in your deck or not. The other two, the Void Mage, Mana War, the 4-mana Mana Wars here, you have to be a really dedicated, aggressive deck to be wanting to play those, which I could see existing. It is pretty good against Delve creatures, but then again, it only creates a 2/2 body and it's sorcery speed. It would need a pretty dedicated shell, which I think is possible. And like some sort of blue tempo-y deck. Blue-red tempo has been performing pretty well, so it's playable, but it's not what I'm playing right now. So I don't recommend it, but you know, maybe hashtag Standard Pauper would recommend it. I don't know. I should probably ask him. Should probably ask whoever's in that chat room and say like, hey, is Separatist Void Mage like playable? Just start that discussion. Boom. Okay, here's the payoff. Why is Bone to Ash good now? And it took me a while to figure out. Well, there's no Griptide but Whisk Away. Alright? I felt like such an idiot when Fate Reforged came out. For 2 reasons in my top 10 set review, I put nowhere was Gurmag Angler even on that list. And at the very top, on the number 1 slot, I had Whisk Away as the best card. And it turns out Whisk Away is right now the only reason why I can deal with Gurmag Angler in my Is It control deck. The first week of the SPDC tournament with the new format, I played an Is It token deck, and I didn't run Whisk Away. And I got destroyed by Gurmag Angler like 3 rounds in a row. I played against Rakdos, like infinite. And you just can't beat that card. So I now have a plan against Gurmag Angler. It involves Whisk Away. Time ebbing your opponent is great. Okay, so 1-shot kill combos. Now these are interesting to know about because the last format had 2 of them. The last format had a 4-card combo that was a Elusive Spellfist and what was the guy? Zephyr's Scribe, so the looter for 3 mana that when you play a spell you get to untap him. You played Retraction Helix targeting him, and then you played a 0-cost artifact, Silk Spider Net or something. So you play the net, you tap the scribe to bounce the net, play the net again, untap the scribe, tap, bounce the net. So basically you're replaying the net infinite, and Elusive Spellfist just gains infinite power, and he's unblockable. So that was one combo. There's another pretty convoluted combo because it took more colors. That just could be done with all blue. But it was Midnight Guard, Ornithopter, Retraction Helix, and Impact Tremors. I guess it was, yeah, white, red, blue. So that one, same thing, Retraction Helix on the Midnight Guard. Play Ornithopter, tap the Midnight Guard, bounce the Ornithopter, replay the Ornithopter, untap Midnight Guard, so you could tap it again every single time is 1 point of damage through Impact Tremors. So infinite damage. Okay, keep in mind those are like uninteractive combos. Just like when I was listening to PV at the Pro Tour talk about his Atarka Red combo of haste creatures and pump spells and Tamir Battle Rage, that exists. So that is basically a standard Pauper staple. Have a creature with 4 power, put Tamir Battle Rage on it, and maybe some other pump spells. Things like Titanic Growth, Might of the Masses, Titan Strength, Green Red, man. How about this? How about Butcher's Glee, Tamir Battle Rage? Can you imagine that? Gurmag Angler gains 16 life. That's a big game. Holy crap! I didn't even think about that till now. I might have to. Wow, I might have to put some Tamir Battle Rage in that deck. But then again, maybe it's not good enough. But that is a way to one-shot kill combo. The other one-shot kill combo is Nantuko Husk, plus a bunch of other tokens and creatures in play, and Subterranean Scout. So you make it unblockable as he stands here as a lowly gray ogre husk. But that zombie insect will mutate out of control if you sack your whole team. So you just got to make sure, the opponent's tapped out, and then you're fine. Or you've duressed them and you know that the coast is clear, or, they only have 1 mana open, and Fiery Impulse could be a card. But if you have enough creatures, you can just sack in response. You'll be too big for them to handle. So yeah. So keep that in mind, that Natugas is coming to get you. Also good combos with, Active Treason. So that's the whole deck. Yeah. So hashtag standard Pauper. I just want to show you 3 decks. This is SPDC 31.03, happened today. I hosted it. We had 18 players, pretty solid. I lost in the semifinals to the eventual winner. I also lost to the other finalist in the Swiss, which I misplayed, which I should not have lost to. I should have beat him. But I made a pretty big misplay that cost me the game. Learning experiences are fun. But anyway, this is my deck. Jeskai, Sage, and Palace Familiar are draw card bodies. So they are enablers, just like Dutiful Attendant. So creatures that we can loop in the graveyard. And we want to be targeting them with Altars, Reap, and Bone Splinters, so we can kill our opponent's creatures and draw a lot of cards. Cruise for all the cards, some Butchers to kill their creatures. 1 Duress to see what's up. Duress kind of gets worse in multiples, so I'm fine with 1 main deck, and I like 1 Butcher's Glee main deck to help gain some life back. Act as a removal spell. What else do we got? We've got 4 Eldrazi Sky Spawner main, making some tokens, more fodder. 1 Mortuary Mire. This card I thought was good when it just got spoiled. It's not. It's a 1, maybe 2 of. Comes to play tap, which is slow and bad, but it's really hard. You have to be putting cards on top of your library that draw cards, because you're time walking yourself out of a draw step, so it's tough. I've been happy with 1. But I do like that you can put a card on top of your library and then play like a Vulture Save-In to draw it. I've had couple pretty sick turns doing stuff like that. 1 Fetid Imp. I like the Death Touch. I like being able to block flyers. I like a card more than Typhoid Wraths at stopping, because it can stop Gurmag Angler too. The 1 mana is not that big a deal. But it doesn't get swept by Boiling Earth and whatnot, so that's quite good. Again, 1 Unholy Hunger to take care of big things, gain some life. And then sideboard here, 3 Debilitating Injuries against the Tuco Husk and green-red aggro decks. Some negates and duresses for the control decks. Disdainful Stroke whenever they have expensive cards. One Read the Bones when sometimes they take out Jeskai Sages, so I'm not going to have that many targets for Altar's Reap. And so if the game's going to go long and grindy, you do want some Read the Bones, right? But the life loss can be really brutal against the aggro deck, so that's why I like Altar's Reap more than Read the Bones right now. And then this little spicy ditty is a play out of the old school playbook of, Mnemonic Wall, Unmake the Graves, or Oromancer Font of Return. This is such a ghetto combo. It's Macabre Waltz, Monastery, Lore Master. So the whole being able to recur creatures and just really get some insanely good late game value. It's pretty much there. The Lore Master is going to get back Treasure Cruise almost every time, though. But it's nice to be able to get the Waltz back, just to get a bunch of creatures back once you have a lot of mana. Other sideboard cards include 2 more Complete Disregards to go with the 2 main deck. So I have access to all those. And then 1 Rune Processor. Again, when you bring in this package of Rune Processor with the Waltz, and you have Dutiful Attendant, again, playing Dutiful Attendant means Altar's Reap is often going to be better than Read the Bones, because you're not losing 2 life. You can block, sack, fog some attacks, and then also, target things like this. You get to trigger Rune Processor more than once. That's a lot of life, and it's huge. So, yeah. That's the deck. So, a really grindy control deck. I think this is a pillar of the format, and we've seen Sultai grind win an event from Forley, and he's a great player and a good deck builder. I just do not think green is necessary at all. It just makes the mana worse, and you're playing cards that are just whatever. So I like Dimir a lot. Now let's look at the second place deck. This is green-red landfall. I think this deck is incredibly strong. So it plays all the landfall creatures that we were talking about. So where are they? It also plays 4 Majoring Bully, which is great with pump spells. 4 Slide Runners, 4 Snapping Gnarlid, and then 4 Valkyrie Predator. So a lot of creatures that get better when you hit land drops. So your land drops are basically spells. Evolving Wilds is sick in their deck. They have, again, Looming Spire is also quite good. I lost to this card is what happened. I didn't play around this card and got punished for it. But yeah, what else do they got? Tormenting Voice to fill the graveyard again into if they draw too many lands, which looks like they're running 11 plus 8, so they're only running 19 lands. That's a pretty low land count. Wow, really? No, 11 plus 4. Plus 12. Alright, 11 plus 12, 23. Okay, I was going to say that's way too low. 23 is good though. But that fuels Hooting Mandrills, which is great that he has Trample, so he works great with the Titanic Growth. Pump spells, Timur Battle Rage. Doesn't pump anybody up on its own, but it's pretty huge in concert with other pump spells or Infectious Bloodlust. Giving the creature haste after they've stabilized, pretty good. Same thing with Titan Strength. Being able to scry and draw cards or filter your draws is sick. So they run the Barrage in the sideboard to deal with tokens and make it so that people can't block at all for a turn. The War Brute's pretty good, just having a dash, hasty, huge threat. Naturalize, I guess, would be good against pacifisms and impact tremors. The Bowmasters is good against the 3/3 flying, which is a big card in the format right now. Sultai Scavenger. 1 Epic Confrontation, just in case they have blockers. Again, I like that you can play Hooting Mandrills, and then I play Gurmag Angler thinking I'm safe, and then you go Epic Confrontation, kill my Gurmag Angler. Firing Impulse against the fast decks, which is good, and Tail Slash, which is an instant and is probably just experimentation, but I think second Epic Confrontation would be better. So yeah, the deck is fast and aggressive, and as you notice, can play some more removal or more big creatures post board and probably take out some of its pump spells against decks with removal. I could also see like two more Tormenting Voice in the sideboard here too, just to get some more card advantage. Or Conifer Strider, because Boiling Earth and Twin Bolt's okay, but Boiling Earth is really bad against this deck. It only kills the Makindi Slide Runner. So if people take out their Boiling Earth, then your 5/1 will not get hit by it, and then you'll have a 5/1 that can't be targeted. And now if they go to block it, you just Tamir Battle Rage it, and it eats whatever you want. And if they don't block it, they're taking 10 damage, and they're probably dead. So you play, like, again, just, it's like a sick combo to play Tamir Battle Rage, Titan Strength, and Titanic Growth on a hexproof creature, because you know that the Whisk Away and whatnot's not going to target it. So keep that in mind. That is a 6 sideboard tech. Alright, but the best deck, this is the deck. He only lost to Roberto, which is, Roberto played a Esper control version of, it's basically Esper Grind. It is the same deck as Sultai Grind, it is the same deck as Dimir Grind. They're all the same deck, they just have different cards on the splash. So he's playing Harsh Sustenance and some other token makers in white, which is okay, but I don't think you need it. So yeah, so let's see. Gurmag Angler, staple of the format. Sultai Emissary, again, better than Tuco Hush Shell than the other card drawers, even though I don't technically count him as a card drawer. He is a great creature to be sacrificed. Alright, other sacrifice fodder. Collateral Damage, alright, and Altar's Reap are really sick because you can steal their creature and then sack it. So even creatures with dies triggers, even if they stole my Palace Familiar, it's pretty sick to steal it and then kill it. Then they draw the extra card off it, and then they can maybe shoot down one of my creatures, or just draw a million cards, or just pump their guy. It's just a brutal card. It does nothing some of the time, though, but all these games seem to be going on for a while, so. Then he's got the Twin Bolts, the Dragon Fodders, so Bitter Rev. I'm trying to think of why you'd play this card over Read the Bones. Depends. I don't know. It's just more expensive. I'd just play Read the Bones. Or I'd just play more Altar's Reaps, actually. Yeah, when you're running that many Active Treasons, the worst thing that could happen is that you have Active Treason and no sacrifice outlet. So, I don't really like this card. Let's see if I can see the whole list here. Yeah, there's no Vulturous Haven either. I'd rather play Vulturous Haven. Because you realize Exploit is also a sacrifice outlet, so you can Active Treason, attack with their guy, then play Vulturous Haven and exploit their guy. So Bitter Revelation as a card draw spell seems good, but it's just not. You could be playing Vulturous Haven, which is much better. Goblin Heel Cutters, okay, I guess. I'd sideboard that. Yeah, he's got a couple removal spells, which are good. A lot of just weird 3s and 2-ofs in the main deck. 3 Mortuary Wire, that's probably too much. Overall, though, very tough to deal with. Let's see if he has any Butcher's Glee. Yeah, he's got 3 Butcher's Glee and 2 Tamir Battle Rage, so he's got that same crazy life gain combo. Against the token decks, he's got Boiling Earth. Against this grindy decks, he's got some Read the Bones. Ooh, he's even got Majoring Bully. I guess he plans on taking out some of his token makers like Dragon Fodder. Maybe he'll take that out and then replace with Majoring Bully. forces them to have different types of removal for their sideboard. Yeah. So one of the things you just got to realize is that I think this deck epitomizes the format in that you can't just like think that he's a token deck and play Boiling Earth X4 and try to get him. And he's not just a Gurmag Angler deck, so you can't just play like all Bone to Ash and Whisk Away. He's got so many diverse ways of dealing damage to you that you have to do the same thing as he's doing. You have to kind of play 2s and 3-ofs, at least post board, to try to make sure that you're answering his threats in the same way. So, cards like Rune Processor, cards that stabilize you and just kind of block everything, I like against decks like this, even though Act of Treason is super problematic against that. But yeah, you just gotta be able to kill all their threats, which is really tough because they have tons of card advantage too. So, anyway, this is definitely, I think Rakdos is right now the number one deck in the format. It's quite strong. I think Landfall is definitely near the top. I think it's the best aggro deck I've seen. And I think Dimir has a place in the metagame. I'm not sure quite where it is yet. It doesn't have red in it, so it has no ability to really sweep tokens. It just lets the opponent pile on tokens, which could be a problem, which is why red is played heavily the most. So there might be room for an Izzet deck. I'm working on an Izzet control deck right now too. Maybe I'll try to fix that and get that going for the next event. I did play my first Standard League double Standard League match with my Izzet control deck, and I won that one. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so that was my pillars of the format. There's a lot of other things that you could talk about. I don't want to go over every single card in the format, but if you're looking to say, hey, hashtag Standard Pauper, where can I play Magic Online for a $2 investment and get almost every card you need in the format at 1 cent per card at the Card Hoarder and MTGO trader bots, and then just have infinite possibilities. The one thing I really like about, if I had to play Constructed, why I choose Standard Pauper, is because I can build every deck in the format. If a new deck comes out, I can build it instantly. It takes no time and effort or money, really. So, in Standard, Dark Jeskai looked pretty sick the other weekend and got crushed at the day 2 of the JP today. Should I go invest in, Bant Megamorph or Atarka Red or, token decks? I don't know. All these things, you can't spend infinite paychecks on those types of cards. So, yeah. Hashtag Standard Pauper. I hope people take my pillars and use them to maybe build some good decks. There's tons of things that I haven't thought of or haven't seen yet. I haven't seen good white aggro decks. I haven't seen, Might of the Masses, I think, could be a card that can get played once people are over prepared for tokens. Maybe we'll just see normal aggro decks that dodge the Twin Bolts and Boiling Earths and play a lot of 4 toughness creatures, stuff like that. I don't know. One other pillar of the format that I think is worth mentioning is lifelink. There's, as I was corrected today, there's one creature with lifelink. It's Absand Guide, which I don't think is particularly playable because it's super expensive, easy to kill, etc. But it is a 4/4 with lifelink for 6 mana. Other than that, you can't give creatures lifelink other than Butcher's Glee. And the only other ways to gain life Best one is Student of Ojutai. If you play a control deck, you want to run 4 of that card, and then run like tons of cantrip cards like Anticipate and Crippling Chill and Bone to Ash and stuff like that. Treasure Cruise. And you can gain a lot of life. So there might be some merit to some decks like that. But other than that, I'm trying to think. Feed the Clan. Gain 5, gain 10. That's just not a playable card. There's Resupply, 6 mana. Gain 6 life, draw a card. Again, just cost too much, too inefficient. But maybe those cards would be playable if there were truly just burn decks out there playing all burn spells, but that is not the case. Standard Pauper is dominated by creatures, hence, these pillars are creature-centric. How to kill them and how to create them in as most efficient way as possible. So yeah, I know this one's a little bit more random and kind of rambled on a little bit and had to talk about the format killings, but had to do it. Feel good to get it off my chest. Stay tuned. We've always got Standard Pauper events on Sundays and Mondays at 11:30 a.m. They're always free to enter. 15 ticks in the prize pool. 7422 top 4. I host SPDC along with my co-host Roberto Remedio. They give bot credits at Card Hoarder. I've had great experiences working with them so far. Takes 2 seconds to get any cards that you need. Other than that, follow my YouTube, blog, Twitter, all this good stuff. And hope to see you in some games. # Standard Pauper if you want to get some games in. All right. Thanks for listening.